All right, everybody, thank you for listening to that song because I think it, like I said, really sets the tone for what the next hour is going to be about for me. I have recently been looking into getting land, and so that is my solution to living in a death cult, to trying to step outside of capitalism as much as I can, to, you know, trying to ease some of the struggles that are happening in our communities. So I have some points that I've like kind of written out for you guys for tonight, and I hope you can gain some insight if this is something that sounds interesting to you on how to get some land and start your own farm. And if you really also want to, like I think like I am going to do, start your own eco village, intentional community, and, you know, live outside of the toxic society that is sadly the Twin Cities. Like, I love the Twin Cities, but the reality is that all this industry, all these things around us, the way that we've built buildings, the things that we eat on the grocery store shelves, our water, everything is really not um created with people in mind. It was created with corporations in mind. And that is why we are seeing this chemical world that we are living in. And it's highly upsetting when you begin to like really recognize it. And I've recognized it early on, not so much about the housing. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about with you guys today for the most part is getting land and constructing housing that is sustainable, good for you, and good for the planet, and will work with the planet instead of against it. Um, so here's kind of like my plan step by step, and I'm gonna go through all the things that I've written down and kind of explain, or just like explain um what's going on. So I do need to double check something really fast because I do believe that this grant that I'm going to talk to you guys about is a grant that you don't need land to get the grant. So, it's a good one for people in Minnesota because it's a Minnesota grant. We do have the emerging farmers um department. It's like a part of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And they have a lot of different grants, generally, and like loans and stuff like that. But the one that I want to talk about is the Emerging Farmers Grant. Okay, let me see if I can pull it up here. Well, I can. I can. Infrastructure, resources, and land. Okay. Land grant. Yeah, wait, maybe this is it. It's the Resources for Emerging Farmers Grant. Okay, like for infrastructure. And there's a few other programs that I had looked up as well that I'm sadly trying to record on my phone, so I'll try to pull it up on my laptop. And okay, so there's agricultural microloan program, beginning farmers equipment and infrastructure program. So this one is up to 5,000 for a mini grant and up to 20,000 for beginning farmers in Minnesota to make an investment in their farm equipment and infrastructure. Um, requires wait, okay, so I think with this one you might have to do there's like a price match. Oh wait, here it is. It's the down payment assistance program. Yeah, there it is. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so the application is closed right now, but this one you do not have to have a farm to get this grant. This is a grant, and it is called the Down Payment Assistance Grant, and is a part of the Department of Agriculture website. So if you just look up on Google emerging farmers Minnesota, it will take you to a website, the agricultural department agriculture website, and then you'll look through them and you'll find the down payment assistance grant, and you can get up to $20,000 for qualified farmers purchasing their first farm. It's a lottery process, but eligibility will be given to applicants as described below. And then also the next cycle here will be probably, they're saying, late summer. So this summer, around August, maybe September, that is when you need to be looking for this particular grant. There is also like a YouTube video about the grant and information session, so those can be helpful to understand the grant process and like what you need to do. I don't ever attend them, but so yeah, you need to be a resident. You got to know some type of farming. I don't know exactly what that means, but I actually do have some understanding, knowledge, and experience with farming on a small scale, but still. From the videos that I was watching on YouTube, now granted, I know YouTube don't make me an expert, so I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, but I'm just giving you guys information I think is going to make me successful in my farming endeavors. Okay, but I was watching this guy who was talking about how he just had a small like garden in his backyard. I mean, he probably had half acre, so not a small garden, probably like a little quarter acre, or maybe like a fourth of an acre. I don't know, a semi-large parcel, but nothing too crazy, not a full-on farm. But with that garden, he was able to get grants through the federal government for like and loans, mostly loans, I think, for purchasing more farm equipment, and he just built into his own backyard. You don't have to do that. I'm not going to do that personally. So you got to earn less than 250,000 annually in agriculture sales. So yeah, if you're not making that, you qualify. You have to have never owned a farm. You can't get it from a direct family member. We'll provide most of the labor and management of the farm. We'll commercially farm for the land for at least 5 years. Is in good standing with the state of Minnesota. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I assume not being in debt, pay your parking tickets, don't be on some kind of weird list. You crook or creep, whatever you are, or you can't, you want to qualify for this grant. And you cannot have ever been convicted of a crime related to a state grant agreement. So, yes, that is, the eligibility. And then it says priority applicants earn less than $100,000 annually in gross agriculture sales. So, like, all of us in the cities, none of us are selling produce and making $100,000 a year off of it in the cities. Produce one or more of the following crops. So this one I think is really cool, and as we're seeing, obviously, the legalization of cannabis in Minnesota, as well as, weirdly, I think this Trump administration already changed its schedule status from Schedule 1 to like Schedule 2 or something. But it was up there with crack, heroin, and meth for whatever, reason for many decades. But now it is becoming more normalized. But if you produce any of these crops, industrial hemp, cannabis, specialty crops, fruits and vegetables, horticulture crops, as defined by the USDA. If you go on the website and you look at this, they'll have a little definition for you. I'm not going to read that, but these will get you priority in this process. I don't know how that works with the lottery. I'm a business. And eligible purchases. Okay, so things you can buy with this money is farmland and other agricultural, like real estate. It says tillable. Oh, yep, that's a word. Tillable acreage, hog barn, commercial greenhouse within the borders of Minnesota. Must close on purchase after application approval within designated time frame. This grant cannot be applied retroactively towards purchases that have already been made. So I'm just saying, that's the grant I'm going to try to get. And right now, what my holdup partially is because I do have some money put up that I could buy a little bit of land with, but I have to find an apartment so I can live here because I am not quite there yet. So, not only that, but land is not cheap. So I totally understand that. $20,000 would get you a decent amount of land. Like, actually, it would from what I'm seeing, it will probably get you like, oh man, 20, maybe like a little over 2 acres. Because I looked it up, and generally speaking, like, it's kind of expensive. But also, as I was looking online and kind of like learning about it, that you also are encouraged to bargain with the land owners if the land has been sitting for a long time, so you can find something and be like, man, it's been on the market for about a year now, buddy. I don't know. Maybe you give it to me for like, $5,000 less or something. You get a deal like that. You can also try to do land auctions, and that's something I'm also going to try to look into a little bit more because that's a good way to get like cheap land, for but good land and also a decent amount of it. Right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to look to get like an acre, which is a football field. I'm pretty sure. It's a big piece of land, and that's not, to say that that's where I'm going to stop. I definitely am going to continue on and create, I think, more eco communities because I feel like we need access to housing. And, we're crowded in the cities. Like, once again, I love the cities, but like part of what is the problem here is like they're not trying to either like give people houses at all, and we're also like all cramped up on top of each other and like don't have no food, and it's hot and we're hungry, and it's like a really long episode of America's Next Top Model that never ends. And yeah, I love the glam and the glitz and the fashion and all the love and the lights and the glitz and the glamour of like the city. It's fun and stuff like that, but I'm like, at what cost? And how can we make it better if like the leadership here and abroad, everywhere, it's not like what I'm doing is it will become more clear. Anyway, the leadership in general is just lacking in understanding and like desirability. It's like they don't desire to help us. They would rather, let all these rental companies come. Thanks, Fry, whatever your name is. I don't like him. He's the reason this is like this. And same with, I'm pretty sure it's our city council too that, helps these companies come in and gentrify everything and make everything unaffordable for everybody, except people who, this is the kick, who, left the farm and they got a little money and now they're like, I'm gonna go live in the cities, or like people who come from a whole different country and like, got really good education somewhere else and then came here and they're like, I want to live in America and I make decent money so they can live there. It's like, it's not for the people that have been living here for a really long time or people who are coming here and like struggling. It's for people who already have access to money and like, or have really good jobs and they're just trying to push everybody out and keep people like poor and jacked up and like living in this like game. So I'm trying to exit the game as best I can because I know I can't fully exit capitalism. Like it's impossible. I live in a capitalistic society. Therefore I have to think like a capitalist in certain ways and like play the game or you get left behind, and I'm not trying to do that. So, as I was saying, you apply for this grant, you get some land. You can either, find an auction. You can either, and with $20,000, you can probably get a lot of land at an auction, but you also do have a time frame in which you have to, um, like close the deal, obviously, so you can't take that much time. And I will say I'm gonna be less picky too. Like if somebody's like this isn't good farmland, I'm just gonna try to work with it as best as I can because I think I want to go for it's called agroforestry vibes. Like I'm going to work with the land that I have and the quality of land that I have and I'm going to try to amend and fix the soil quality by reestablishing things and adding natural fertilizers to the ground and trying to reverse some of the damage that monocropping and draining of our lakes and our streams and our rivers and ponds and creeks all throughout the state has really done a number on Minnesota. There's actually even like a program right now that if you already have land, you could, and you have wetlands and you help like conserve that, what you're like a conservationist and you want to help like protect that wetlands and like help it thrive, like you get money for that because we're starting to find out that like what we did really jacked up Minnesota's environment. So yeah, it's really, really quite sad. Um, you grow a small crop once you get your land. You don't have to like do anything crazy. You can grow just tomatoes. You could do eggs, you could do chicken eggs, you can do duck eggs. You could do, I was thinking a tea garden would be really nice. You could just grow organic teas, go sell that at the farmer's market, get yourself like a little website, put it online, sell it on Facebook Marketplace, wherever. People always need food. People always need tea. Like I know this as a jewelry artist and a business person. I wish I was more into like cooking because I know when people be out here vending and they cook good food, they make good money. When somebody's like, that smells good. And people who are selling good quality produce and teas and stuff like that and herbs and even like, you could do maple syrup. You could find land with maple trees on it, tap them, cook down the syrup, get there's things you have to do in between that. It's not as simple as going and tapping a tree and then you get to go sell it out in the world abroad. You have to get, there's probably some classes you have to take. You probably have to get your cottage farm license. There's some other steps, but ultimately, and maybe not with like tomatoes. Like you might not need a cottage food license to sell tomatoes because they're just tomatoes. I think that's more for like pickling, fermenting, maybe yogurts and like dairy stuff like that. So once you get a crop going, you can sell that to help pay your land taxes. And you can get a farm with a house on it. That is not what I'm going to do. Or you could build one, with your own hand. That's what I'm about to do. I know it sounds crazy, but we'll get there. Build one with your own hands. You could, you know, build some small structure that's like not, like a teeny house. Or you could find a house that's like jacked up and you can go in there and kind of clean it up and get it together. But this is not for just like everybody. Obviously, you need help. So like if you have a community around you to help you do this, if you have people that like would do construction either cheap for you or just literally come help you out, be like, I've got this land and I found this house. There's a house on the land and it's generally fine, but it needs some work and I need people to come and just help me kind of work on it as like, and you just live in that house and sell your produce and you work on your home. And as you're selling your produce and making money and or whatever you're making and selling there, right? It could be a lot of things. You can make soap. You could buy the raw products for soap and make soap out there and sell soap. It really doesn't matter. You could really go on the land and sell whatever you want. It's just the point of getting the land and making the money to be able to support the land's taxes. Because at the moment, unless you don't if you got a house on there, then obviously that you got to pay your, taxes for your house and stuff like that. But you also got to pay your land taxes. So this is me just saying, use your land to make money. You can also rent out pieces of your land for other people to grow things on and sell off of it. So there's a lot of ways that you can like use the land to produce some kind of income to then keep the land. And then as you're doing all this over, you buy your land, it's the first year, you want to gather evidence, you want to take pictures, you want to make sure you're keeping a really detailed record of like what you're buying, what your yield is, all these things, anything you could think of. And there's probably a list online, but I'm talking about this stuff so that you can then go apply for more loans and grants, but you have to prove to these people that you know what you're doing. And that's a big part of getting grants and getting loans and stuff like that, is that you show that you're capable or you have like some understanding of what you're doing, or they're not going to finance you. So, yeah, now we're a year in. You apply for loans, you apply for more grants, and you expand the farm. If you decide to do an eco community, which is what I'm deciding to do, and I think this sounds like it makes sense to me, the next step would be to sell a small portion of your land to eco community members. So your friend who's going to come live on your commune with you. And then you repeat steps 1 through 5. You apply for the merging farm grant, you get a loan or you get the grant, you buy more land, and so you're adding on to the land. You're giving your friends a little bit of land so they can say, hey, I got a farm too, I need grants too, I need some money to make my land grow, when in reality we're all working towards a desired goal. And I think we should buy up the land, because why are we letting Microsoft buy up the land? How do we ever expect to keep anything if we just let these people buy it all up? They can't. It's bad. It's bad for us as people. So I think if you can buy land, you should buy land. And right now is a good time to buy it, because these farmers are starting to get old and it's already lonely for them. They don't want to do it anymore. I'm telling you, I've been to farming conferences. I'm like doing my research. I'm like, there's and I know, like I said, I know YouTube is not like this like holy grail, but it kind of is, of information. This guy was just talking about how there's going to be a land wealth transfer right now. It's going to be really big because of the baby boomers and, their kids and grandkids. They don't want the farms. They don't want the farms. They want to live in the city. and in the suburbs, or they want to go abroad, or they want to go to school. They don't want to be farmers anymore. A lot of these farmers are lonely. I'm telling you right now that I'm not lying when I say there is a loneliness epidemic amongst farmers. They're some of the loneliest people in our country because they don't have community. They'll have hundreds of acres of land and nobody to hang out with. And all they do is farm and dump the toxic chemicals on the ground and make a bunch of money, except right now because they're like losing out because they decided to, sadly, it's not their fault. I want to say that. A lot of what we're seeing is a product of like mass manipulation into this chemical society where people were taught and told that all these chemicals are the future and we're going to build the world out of plastic and it'll be shiny and hard and beautiful and everybody will love it and nothing will ever rot and it will be great. But it's really not. It's like a nightmare. It's like not the kind of science fiction future I wanted to live in. I'm really upset about that. I want flat space technology. I've said this before. I want a Mary Poppins purse. I want flat space technology. I want a hover car. I want instant skin healing. I want med packs. I don't want AI. I don't want nukes. I don't want chemical paradise where everything is lathered in a thin coat of something that is a byproduct or has been alchemized from petroleum. Because that's like everything. It's plastic and it's gas. Okay? So, those are my steps for you guys to see if that makes sense to you. Try it out. If it doesn't, I don't know, then don't do it. I also, like I said, I plan to build a natural structure because it's better for you and it's cost effective. It is the way that our ancestors and people in the world have been building houses for a really long time. And a lot of people, what pretty much happened was Industrial Revolution, you know, like in between then and like the 70s, like chemical companies and now pretty much took off, you know, and they were just, you know, just messing around, man. And I get it. They're scientists. They just want to learn and understand stuff. But they weren't that smart and they didn't really understand what they were doing. And so they kind of opened Pandora's box on us. I'm sure Monsanto thought it was such a great idea to like make whatever out of everything and just whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's not, it's bad. All the chemical stuff. And I know there's people who will be like, oh, everything is chemicals. And I'm like, I'm not talking about like lemon juice is like a type of acid. Like I get that. Like there's literally chemicals that they've put in our food, our paint, our clothing, I mean the water, the siding on the house. I mean, like, do you realize that lead is in such high concentrations in our environment, like in the cities and in anywhere, because we used it in our paint on the outside of our houses and on the inside of our houses. And when they finally figured out it was bad for us, they chipped it off into the ground, and now the ground is full of lead. So all these ideas, like not every chemical is like, oh, it's just chemicals. Like everything's made of chemicals, science. Like, no, that's not the truth. These things have been, that is why people are experiencing more health complications than we've ever experienced throughout history in a different kind of way, because I learned about cretinism the other day, and that has to do with iodine, which that's kind of cool, but also crazy. I didn't know people could get cretinism. I didn't know cretinism was a disease. And it's actually probably a bigoted term. I'm sorry if, I mean, I don't know if anybody would be offended by that, possibly. It's very old, but like, yeah, it's probably a bigoted term to talk about people who had like physical and mental disabilities from lack of iodine in pregnancy. Other than just, you know, that was a very specific, that was Sweden. I watched a weird video on YouTube. It was a good video.
Sweden was having high cases of it, and they found out, everybody was eating iodine, getting it in different ways. They iodized salt. Everybody stopped being cretins. Birth rates were better with less, you know, weird defects and stuff like that would cause people problems. So, yeah, I just feel like for me, I think I would feel better living in a house made with natural materials. Um, and what the type of house that I'm talking about is, it's called a cob house. So cob is like, it's like sand and clay, and sometimes people will add concrete. I really am gonna be very like as natural and as recycled as possible about my structures, because I think it's the best thing for the environment and it's the best thing for me. I will use some recycled materials. I'm not going to go as far as to use tires like they do down in, I think it's New Mexico and like Arizona, when they build their earth ships down there. I mean, if you've heard of earth ships, this is what I'm talking about essentially, is like building an earth ship. So cob is it's mud. You let it air dry, and it hardens like concrete. And it will leave like a rough kind of like not so pretty surface, and you can take the clay and make a clay plaster from it, I think by adding just like another type of dust rock or something and a little more water, and you can slather that on your house, and you'll have like this really nice like smooth finish, and you can do that on the inside and the outside. And down in Arizona and down in the southern part of the country where it's a little hotter, and especially where it's drier, they tend to do really well and last really long. It's like a similar method to, if you've ever heard of the mud skyscrapers. I can't remember what they're called. Mud skyscraper. I can't spell. Okay. Oh, it's fine. Yeah. Shimba. Sounds like Simba. Shimba. I think that's how it's in Yemen. Okay. There's these towers. It's a skyscraper city, no joke. And it's entirely made of mud, and it's an ancient city. It's been around for how long? Let's see. It will say somewhere. It's over 2,000 years old. People still live there right now, okay? So the other benefits, and I got a little off track because I was supposed to tell you why. Oh yeah, there's a whole backside of this. I have way more stuff. Oh, that's okay. Anyway, so the reason natural housing is also really nice is it naturally heats and cools itself through chemistry and physics and something else. I don't really fully understand it, but essentially what happens is the cob, which is an earthen material. So think of like how concrete gets hot in the summer. You know how it gets real warm. You're like, wow, the concrete is super warm. That is kind of the same thing that's happening to the outside of this cob house. So the cob house is absorbing all this solar energy into it, making it hot. And this is where I get confused, but it's fine. It doesn't need to make sense because people are doing it and they're showing the results, and people are able to live in these houses very comfortably without using not a traditional, because this is traditional, using a modern heating system. So the walls heat up, and then the heat gets pushed in throughout the evening. So as it starts to get cool outside, the rock now like starts to cool down, but the heat doesn't just dissipate into the air, it actually gets pushed down and into the house. So it begins to heat the house in the evening. And then in the morning, when it heats up again, that cool air that was there from the night before gets pushed into the house and helps keep the house cool during the day. So you're using the sun in this particularly good I guess like solar conducting material. They call it like a solar battery essentially to heat and cool your house without electricity, just sun and stone. And I know it sounds crazy because you're like, why would I want to live in a mud house? They're really nice. I highly suggest you guys go online and just look up like earth ships. Go look up a cob house. Look up the process of it. I watched a video of a lady who said that when she was 50 years old, she moved to Peru. She got herself a piece of land. She drew a freaking circle in the dirt. And then she made a cob house with that circle by herself. No one else helped her. And it wasn't like the most amazing cob house, but I'm like, wow, look what she could do by herself with minimal money. I mean, these things cost like $5,000 max. If you want the most basic, if you want the most extravagant cob house, you can make a cob mansion if you want. Still be cheaper than a regular mansion. And the best part about this to me is that you do not owe the bank money for your house. You own your house. You built it with your own hands. You can get a septic system. You can tie into utilities. You cannot do this in the cities though, y'all. You have to leave out and you have to go into the boondocks. You have to go into the country because our regulations in the cities, they won't allow it. They're not going to let it. You can't barely have, a messy yard here without somebody trying to fine you. So you're not going to be able to have a cob house in the cities. This is something you have to do out in the country. Yeah, but you can hook up to the utilities if you want. You can also have a composting toilet. And I already started thinking about my design, about how I want to get rid of my poo poo. And I think I have an amazing idea. I think I want to make a pooptarium, which is a terrarium that will be enclosed with some plants and some composting medium and some bacterium and some bugs, and all my poop will go in there, and then it will compost down and it will feed the plants. I'll have a little door or whatever so I can trim stuff, but it will be enclosed like a terrarium, like nothing will ever escape from it, and it will just recycle back into the dirt inside this terrarium and feed these things I don't plan to eat. Some people, not me, but some people out there, they do redirect their gray water, you can guess, and they poo-poo after it's been composted, because there is a very specific process that has to happen for your poo-poo to become okay for the environment without hurting it, because we eat a lot of not great things. And yes, just like a lot of it in one place versus, if you're just like walking around taking one here and there, or your vast majority of your diet is grass, it's probably fine. Anyway, my point is there's ways to do it. Rainwater. If I don't have like a creek or whatever kind of access to water on my land, I want to do rainwater. And even if I do have groundwater, triple, quadruple filter boiled. And any way to get any of the stuff in it out of it, because I already know, I feel like the aquifer is fine because it's so deep, but the groundwater may not be so fine in Minnesota right now because we like dumping stuff. We got 3M and I don't trust those guys. So yeah, that's like the idea. There's cob houses, there's hempcrete, which is lightweight and highly insulating. Straw bale houses are the way that I would go with it, because that is how people do it in cooler climates that are similar to Minnesota. So like when you're looking into this, it's hard to find stuff about Minnesota and like how to do it, but just so you know, the regulations depend on like county to county, township to township, or whatever. But you can build cob houses in Minnesota. And I don't think you can do that everywhere, which is nice. But when you're looking for information, if this is something you're interested in, look up places like Canada or parts of Europe that would have similar climates to Minnesota to try to understand what best model works for you. I think hay, it's called a hay bale structure, hay bale cob house, where hay bale goes on the inside, would work best for Minnesota, as well as putting in a heating system that is wood burning but takes up minimal wood because it also uses this earthen structure as a heating battery because the stone holds the heat so well. You can actually put the stove into like a bench, or I'm thinking, I got just the ideas that are going through my head right now is crazy. I'm gonna do this. You can put the heater in a bench, a stone bench, then the stone will hold the heat all night and slowly release it into the air throughout the evening. People say that their houses stay hot all day from burning wood one time, in the evening. They burned it at night, it started to cool down a little bit, and that's like in the winter. And even in the winter, they can still get their houses up to 70, around 70 degrees now. If you're a really cold person who likes it really hot, you might be able to get away with burning more than once in a day or whatever and still like keeping it really warm. But also I'm so sad because I have like, this is the end of my show, but there's also like greenhouse structures that you can put over your house in order to have a year-round little like conservatory. And that is another thing I'm going to do on my land is I'm going to build a greenhouse over my house. Therefore, it keeps my house warm inside of the structure, and I can also keep the plants warm inside of there with my house, so then I can grow things year round. You can grow things you never thought you could grow in Minnesota in a greenhouse, in a house, okay? And okay, like why would you guys want to do this? Is a question that I wrote on this piece of paper when I was writing stuff. You can help create eco communities for people in our community, and they can be really cheap because you're not paying a mortgage. You're not having to pay for water in the same way. Your utilities aren't the same. You can have people do labor for work for a house, or you can pay a little bit of money for the house or whatever, but you could use it as a way to generate income for everybody on this property. You could essentially be a small community and take care of each other, right? Another reason is our houses in our city are literally toxic. These places are giving people sicknesses that we're not aware of, that nobody's going to be outright upfront with us about, because they don't want us to run away, because they want us to be here, because we're all stressed out and like nature deprived. We're not supposed to be surrounded by concrete, which is unnatural and doesn't breathe. That's another thing about earth and housing that's really nice, is it doesn't get moldy because it breathes, because mold does not grow on rocks. As far as the hay bale goes, I'm not really sure. I do need to look more into that and see, but you could also do hempcrete, which is insulating as well. And that is like the hemp gets limeified or calcified or something. You mix it with lime and it literally makes it like hard, like rock, but it's super light and insulating. And I'm pretty sure that wouldn't mold. So the structures we literally live in are not good for us. Where is it? I had the whole list. It's affordable. Access to food. You can grow food for your community. You can grow food for yourself. You never have to worry about food again if you live on a farm. Nobody has to struggle and stress about that. It's crazy. You don't have to think about water. Your resources are taken care of. You can make a self-sustaining farm, and you can use recycled materials to do this. All right. It's 9:00 and I had a few more things to say, but I think I did a good job. So I hope you enjoyed the last hour with me. I know I usually do music, so I hope this was not too much, and I hope you guys really enjoyed the show. I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.